Hey there, all you friends, true believers, and newcomers alike. Superfly Comics Guy here, and while we've reviewed Frank Miller's Daredevil, we've reviewed Bendis's Daredevil, but what we haven't reviewed is a sort of awkward middle child omnibus, and that is why I am bringing you a review today of the Marvel Knights by Joe Quesada Omnibus, where I'll be taking you through the cover, the spine, the contents collected, the build quality, and a flip through where I can share some of my own thoughts, opinions, and recommendations on some of the stories collected in here. So, if you enjoy the video at any point, you know how to show it, and you're always welcome to leave your own thoughts down below. But with that out of the way, let's take a nice acrobatic flip into this book. Let's go. Alright, so the dust jacket to the Marvel Knights by Joe Quesada Omnibus. This is the only cover available. I'm sure if they do a reprint, they will add another cover or two for you to choose from. Very strange name, in my opinion, for this omnibus, Marvel Knights by Joe Quesada. Yes, it is true that Joe Quesada either writes or draws all of the stories in this book, but Marvel Knights is an imprint. It's not really tied to a specific character, so they really should have just named this the Daredevil by Joe Quesada Omnibus, because as you'll see when we look at the contents, this is very much a Daredevil book. But here you have the spine here, and the back. So as I said, we're collecting Daredevil's 1998 series 0 through 15 and the half issue. We're collecting Daredevil Father, number 1 through 6, and Marvel Authentics Daredevil number 1, and material from Marvel Knights Double Shot number 1. Cover price of 100 US, 127 Canadian. But yeah, very much a Daredevil book. So let's get this flipped over and have a look under this dust jacket. There we go. So yeah, we do have a wraparound cover here. So let me open that up for you to get a better look. Love the colors on this cover and the birds there, but Daredevil does got a little bit of a derpy look on his face here, but very acrobatic. Not too bad of a cover. But let's start taking a look at what we have on the inside. Okay, so it is good old-fashioned flip-through time. Marvel Knights. Again, very misleading. You have an image of Wolverine and Spidey here, but they're not really in this book. This is very much a Daredevil book. You got a nice contents page here showing you the order of some of the stories you'll be getting in here. There's really three main parts to this book. It's Guardian Devil, Parts of a Whole, and Daredevil Father. Now I'm going to, and it's important to mention, this isn't really a table of contents because you don't have page numbers in this omnibus, unfortunately. Now I'm going to be avoiding spoilers as best as I can. I'm just going to give you sort of the general plot points, vague premises of some of these stories in here. But yeah, we're starting off here with the first story, Guardian Devil. This is written by Kevin Smith. And the main idea here is that a 15-year-old girl comes to Daredevil with a baby, claiming that apparently it's hers, but she doesn't understand where it came from because she says she hasn't had sex before. So there's this sort of miraculously born baby that she's very confused about, and Daredevil tries to help her uncover the origins of this baby because it had to come from somewhere, right? But as he's doing this, he's confronted by a strange character named Nicholas Macabre, who informs Daredevil that this baby is actually the Antichrist. Oh, great. Lovely. And around the same time, Foggy Nelson, Daredevil's partner and friend, is accused of murdering a woman he was having an affair with, but he claims that this woman turned into a demon. So now it's up to Daredevil to figure out what the heck is really going on, how all these things tie together. He'll be soliciting help from characters like Black Widow and Doctor Strange, and going up some pretty deadly forces along the way. And all the art in here is done by Joe Quesada. So you can see an example of some of his work here. This is always a funny cover to me because, like, can you imagine how long it must have taken for Daredevil to unwind this string he's got wrapped around this cross here? So yeah, most of the art is done by, well, I think all of the art is done by Joe Quesada, bar maybe like a couple issues or something like that. And, you know, it's sometimes I like Joe Quesada's art and sometimes I don't. It definitely has that sort of remnants of the 90s feel, that sort of transitional period between the exaggerated 90s art to the more grounded style of the 2000s. But Joe Quesada definitely, I find, leans more towards the exaggerated side. Now, Guardian Devil is most notably known for the big impact that it had on the relationship between Daredevil and Karen Page, his once secretary and on-again, off-again love interest. And yes, that is true. That impact is definitely why a lot of Daredevil readers may point you to this story still. But otherwise, in terms of the story itself, I think it's okay. Guardian Devil brings up some interesting ideas and themes, you know, pulling in the religion and the supernatural. But a lot of the time, it feels like Guardian Devil is just retreading plot threads from Born Again. And in general, this story comes across as a weaker version of that, I found. Now, the next big story you get in here is called Parts of a Whole. This one is written by David Mack, and this is probably my favorite portion of this book because this is the first appearance of Echo, or Maya Lopez, this sort of ninja assassin type character who's searching for her father's killer, who she believes to be Daredevil. So Echo is actually introduced as an enemy at first, and very similar to Taskmaster, she can actually copy moves and talents by observing them. But she relies very heavily on these visual cues because she's also deaf. So in some ways, her greatest strength is also her greatest weakness. But the interesting part is that Daredevil, as Matt Murdock, meets Maya Lopez, and they begin a bit of a romantic relationship, which is really interesting because you have, you know, Maya obviously has this grudge against Daredevil, but is in a relationship or exploring a relationship with Matt Murdock. So there's this whole kind of cat and mouse game going on. And some moments in here from this story were actually captured in the Hawkeye show on Disney Plus, which, I'll be honest, I just thought was okay. I wasn't a huge fan of the Hawkeye show. Let me know what you guys think. But as far as this story goes, very, very much liked it. And then the final big story you get in this omnibus is Daredevil Father. And unfortunately, this was probably the least memorable story of this omnibus for me. I didn't read this omnibus recently. I actually read this a couple years ago. So I'm most fuzzy on this story. But basically, it revolves around there's a serial killer on the loose known as Johnny Sockets, who is killing people, but then also removing their eyes. And Daredevil needs to track down who this killer is. So this is written and drawn by Joe Quesada. And the art is kind of strange here because we have this sort of Dark Knight Returns type of design for Daredevil. I'll go into that a little bit later. But yeah, Daredevil's it's called Daredevil Father because Daredevil spends a lot of this story reflecting on his father and the influence that his father had on him. There's lots of themes in here of parenthood and how children can turn out differently depending on how they were raised, which, you know, it fits because Joe Quesada actually wrote this as a bit of a tribute to his own father who had passed away. So that's kind of touching as well. But I'd say the actual story itself, the actual quality of the story is it's pretty inconsistent, I'll be honest. Because you think it's going to be all about this sort of murder mystery, but for example, in the very middle of the book, you get a sudden appearance of this random gang of superpowered people known as the Santarians, and they just contribute pretty much nothing to the story. The book kind of hops around a lot. And the story is honestly a little bit predictable, but there is kind of a clever twist at the end. Although I think it may be a little polarizing for some people, as they technically do a little bit of a retcon with some of Daredevil's history in here. But yeah, man, like the art in this story is weird. It's got a little bit of that sort of Dark Knight Returns type of feel to it, where Daredevil is drawn quite bulky a lot of the time, which feels weird. There's honestly a point in this book where he straight up looks like Juggernaut at one point because of how huge he is. So I wasn't really a huge fan of that. Yeah, there's that panel. Like, what the heck is going on here? Just hugely oversized Daredevil. Yeah, I'm not sure what the thought process was behind this. But the environments and the backgrounds are drawn pretty nice, so I did like that. But now to take a peek through this extras section, which is honestly huge. Like this, everything you see here, that's all extras. So if you're not a fan of extras, this might rub you the wrong way, because you might feel like it's just padding the length of the book, when there could have been, I don't know, other stories put in here maybe. But I think there's some pretty cool stuff in here, honestly. We're not going to go through all of it because it would take a very long time, but I'll give you some highlights. So we have some interviews with Joe Quesada, where he's kind of going over some of his creative process. Yeah, there's some snippets talking about the Daredevil movie. This one, for example, is written by Ben Affleck. The Marvel Knights sketchbook, which is huge. Got a lot of insight from various creators like Kevin Smith, character designs, lots of stuff in here, such as in-progress sketches, original art. Look at all this stuff. It's pretty crazy. Unused pencils, variant covers, which you'll pretty commonly see in other omnibuses too. This is a cool example of some of Joe Quesada's creative process, because he would take pictures of himself or others in order to get a reference for some of the images he wanted to draw. And then he would kind of use that as guidance or inspiration, which I thought was pretty cool. And then, as I said, you're getting lots of afterwords and intros and spotlight interviews with a lot of the creators like David Mack and Kevin Smith and Jimmy Palmiotti, just to name a few. Some more character designs here towards the end. Some notes, again, in progress sketches, some more variant covers, I believe. Let's see. Yeah, we got some more variant covers here. But yeah, that's pretty much it for your extras section. It is very, very big. For build quality, we have 728 pages in this omnibus. There is what the eye looks like. It's really fantastic. This is a perfect example of a spread page here. You can see we're not getting any gutter loss at all. Pretty great to see. The pages I thought were great quality as well. Never noticed any bleed through. So yeah, the only thing I would have changed is just including page numbers so that you could navigate easier. But yeah, really happy with the build quality on this omnibus. But there we have it. So what do I think about this book? Well, I'd say if you're already a fan of Daredevil, then sure, I'd say this book is worth checking out. But if you're completely new to the character and you're trying to find a good starting point for reading him, then I'd say there are much better places to start, such as Frank Miller's Daredevil or Bendis's Daredevil. That being said, if you do decide to read Bendis's Daredevil, you may just want to read a Guardian Devil, or at least be familiar with what happens there. But yeah, I don't think the stories in this book were that strong overall. Parts of a Whole was definitely my favorite, but I thought Guardian Devil was just okay, aside from that one big impactful moment it has. And then Daredevil Father I thought was pretty interesting, but not super consistent and paced kind of oddly. But that's been my review of the Marvel Knights by Joe Quesada Omnibus. You let me know what you thought about this book, what you think about some of the stories inside. Feel free to leave your thoughts down below. But thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to catch you in another video real soon. So, you have yourself a great day. I've been Superfly Comics Guy, and until next time, you keep reading. Bye-bye, guys.